All right, what's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast weekly real estate tip, where every single week I come to delivering different tips, tactics, and strategies that I've learned on my 20-year-long real estate career that have allowed me to go out there and sell over 7,000 homes and become one of the top agents and team leaders on the planet, and sharing this information with you so you can take this information, implement, take action on it, implement into your own real estate business, and go out there and create those real estate businesses that you truly know you want and deserve. All right, so today I want to talk to you about a massive mistake that I see so many in our industry making when they just want to go out there and start stacking on new lead generation strategies, or if they're looking for a new lead, whether it's strategies or strategy, and I want to make sure that you don't make this mistake. Now, I'm going to cover two different things here. I want to make this twofold. All right, so if you already have lead gen strategies in place, I want to talk to you about what to make sure to do before you go out there and add another one. Then maybe you don't have any lead gen strategies in place, or maybe you have some in place that aren't working. Or if you are in the event that you are going to add something new, like what to do to ensure that you nail it and get this thing right. So many people just approach this in the wrong manner, and they just end up experiencing difficulty, resistance, hardship with their lead gen, lead follow-up, lead conversions for their whole entire career. I mean, that's the vast majority of our industry. The vast majority of our industry is pretty damn good when they get face-to-face with, a potential client or a client. And they do, the vast majority of our industry does deliver good service, and they really care about their clients. And, but man, they've got this huge bottleneck, this huge issue with their inability to go out there and create more clients. And if you do the things that I'm going to talk to you about here today, you can quickly go out there and solve this and get to a point. And this is the point that you want to get to. Regardless of how big you want to grow and scale your business, my recommendation is to get to the point where you know how to generate more business than you can handle. And there's two reasons for that. Number one, if you want to continue to grow and scale your business and grow and scale your income year over year, okay, this is necessary. So then you can go out there and add the leverage that you need and keep growing your business. But maybe you're like, hey, Josh, I don't want to go out there and build a team or, do any of those things. Like, that's just not for me. Okay, cool. The other benefit of this, then when you dial in this skill set, is now you get to start being really picky and choosy on who then you want to work with. Do you want to work with, let's just say you're like, dude, I don't care to go out there and build a team, Josh, closing hundreds and hundreds of units on an annual basis like you have. I'm totally cool with my 30 or 50 units a year, right? Okay, cool. 30, 50 clients a year. But wouldn't you rather be picky and choosy and be able to work with people that you really enjoy, that respect your boundaries, that respect you as a human being, that respect your profession, that truly appreciate you, or do you want to have to get to a point where you're desperate and have to tolerate people that walk all over you and negative clients? And it's like the day that I really started to fall in love with this industry was the day that I really grasped this and got to a point where I could be picky and choosy, because I no longer was desperate. I had more customers than I could personally go out there and help. And now I could start pick and choose, again, the people I really wanted to work with that really, again, appreciated me. And, I don't know about you, but I can't stand personally doing business, being put in a position, a situation where I feel like I'm kind of held hostage, or I feel like, I got to allow them to treat me maybe like a human punching bag. It doesn't mean I won't stand up for myself, but you got just certain personality types where it's like I don't like that, man. I don't like, I like it where it's mutual respect. Look, I'm going to work my ass off for my clients. I'm going to go above and beyond, but and I'm going to show them respect and appreciation. But I really like when that respect and appreciation is reciprocated. Yeah, right. Okay, so now let's jump on in. Now, the biggest mistake that I see when people are thinking about adding a new lead gen strategy, and this is something, I have these conversations all the time, as you probably heard on this podcast. I've been offering for some time these limited time one-on-one free Zoom blueprint strategy coaching calls for you guys, which is still available for a limited amount of time. If something you want to take advantage of, you can go to www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. If you want to jump on a 60-minute coaching call with me personally, we can break down and dissect your business, where your business is at, what your long-term goals are, what your 12-month goals are, what your biggest obstacles are, what you're currently doing, and then I'll map out exactly what my recommendation is for you to get from where you're at to where you want to go. So again, if that's something you want to take advantage of, go to www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call, or just go to the show notes in the description and click the top link below there. All right. So, but one of the biggest mistakes that I see on those calls is, okay, they're doing, we start breaking down, okay, what they're currently doing. And I'm doing, let's just say they're doing two things in addition to maybe past client, sphere of influence, referral business, but then in addition to that, maybe they're doing two things for new client acquisition. But now they're looking to add a third because maybe let's just get an individual agent example. Like this is a common example. They're doing, 24 units and they want to scale up to 48 units, on an annual year-over-year basis, right? So they're doing 2 deals a month. They want to scale up to doing 4 deals a month, right? Which is easy to go out there and do. Well, I should say simple. Simple doesn't always mean easy. It can be hard if you don't have the right plan and path and you have this information. So then from there, though, they're reaching out to me to walk them through, like, what's the new thing? Like, what's the thing I need to add? Or, what's the new lead gen strategy I need to add? Or 2 lead gen strategies I need to add? And I get it. The common thought process, okay, I'm doing 2 things now. If I add 2 more things, I'm doing 2 things now. If I want to double my business, okay, I need to add 2 more things. So the first thing that I do with them, I'm like, hey, before you go add, like, think of each lead gen strategy that you're doing is like a campfire. Like, you got this fire that you built, right? So before we got 2 fires burning, 2 fires going, before we go out there and add 2 more, let's first see if we can add more wood and more gasoline to the fires you already have burning, and get those burning as big and as heavy and as bright and as hot as we possibly can. Then once they get to a point where when you're adding more wood, you're adding more gasoline, like no matter what you add to it, it's like that fire's just not going to burn bigger, hotter, brighter. Then from there, if you have the capacity to do so, then go add an additional thing. So here's an example. I was on a call not too long ago, about a week or so ago, with an agent that was doing primary news source, was open houses. And this is going to include any open house, any niche, whatever like this. I'm not saying that this is specific to open house. I'm just using this one as an example. But they wanted to add something additional, right? And I was like, well, started asking questions about their open houses, right? So, okay, we want to see, okay, is it an activity thing? Because, I mean, their deals were coming from open houses. That's where all their deals were coming. Not all of them. Some will come from repeat referral business, but, majority of their deals were coming from open houses. And this was a person that was really looking to go out there, if I remember correctly, was looking to at least 4X, right? So then, though, I was like, okay, let's, because we can't necessarily control repeat referral business. I mean, we can. And there's things that we can get that up, but it's a slow build process, even if you're doing everything right, even in this, especially in this market that we're in right now. Right. So then from there, though, I'm like, okay, let's chunk down and look at what you're doing with the open houses. Right. So I'm like, okay, so we start breaking down the 6 different, processes within the strategy, of open houses to go out there and maximize open houses. So I started asking, okay, well, number one, I'm trying to see, okay, is this an action problem? Is it a process problem? Is it a skill set problem? Yeah, it's usually in one of those 3 buckets, right? Like, okay, you're either not taking enough action, you have the wrong process, AKA strategies. Process is just step-by-steps broken down of your strategy. So you either have, taking the wrong action, you don't have the right strategy, or you haven't developed the right skill set. And then from there, okay, we can also talk about systems. Maybe they don't have the right supporting systems. So all of these things I start chunking down. Well, very quickly I see that, okay, they didn't have an action problem. This person did, like, can't remember the exact number, but I think it was something like 60 open houses, like like awesome amount of open houses, right? So it wasn't the amount of action, right? Then from there, then I'm breaking down, okay, well, what's the average traffic count? And they were getting decent traffic. Not to say that couldn't be improved, because it could have been, but they were getting goodness. When I did the math on this, and this is where it's really important to understand, like, what conversions you should be hitting. If you are doing a great job with this lead source, you need to know per strategy that you are going after, like, what the expectation is for conversions. So I did the math on them. I'm like, okay, look, industry average might be like, let's just say 1 out of 50 for conversions for open houses. And that's my best guess from just data I've collected from seeing from other people. I'm not saying that I've got data to back that up on NAR, and the reason why I bring that up is sometimes I'll get called out in these podcasts, but like, well, show me the data. Where do you get that data from? I'm like, dude, I mean, this is just from my own conversation. Now I can give you my data inside my business and what we're seeing, so that's just a guess with that, right? Just from conversations that I hear. Okay. Then from there, if you're doing a good job, you should be converting 1 out of 15 actual sign-ins in your open house. If you're doing an exceptional job, you should be converting 1 out of 10. So I did the math and I told this person, I was like, dude, you don't have a lead issue. You already have enough leads coming in from this one strategy to go out there and do your, 48 units a year, whatever that goal was that they had. I was like, you got more than enough here to hit your target and goals. So the issue here isn't leads. So you don't need a new activity unless you don't enjoy this activity anymore. Then we can talk about doing a new activity. But if you enjoy it, yeah, right. Then from there, let's talk about how do we improve your conversions with this lead source. So then we start, chunking it down, divide and conquer, right? And if you want to go out there and get great at lead gen, because I'm here to tell you right now, everything works, nothing doesn't. This is a hard pill to go out there and swallow, because then we got to realize that we are doing a substandard job, that we suck, another way of putting it. If I'm trying to, I'm not trying to be harsh to people, but it's like, look, we got to, like, I have to call myself out all the time too. Like, when I'm good at something, when I suck at something, and when I'm sucking at something, it's okay. Well, I'm sucking at this. I don't look at that as a negative. I don't take that as an insult. I'm looking at that, okay, I suck, right? That's good for me to know. So then I can sit there and identify, okay, how do I go from sucking at this thing to being good at this thing, to being exceptional at this thing? So then from there, we got to start chunking down the processes. Okay, when we look at open house example, there's 6 different steps to it. I'm not going to go through those 6 different steps. I got other podcasts on that, bunch of podcasts on that. You can go break those down. So I start chunking this down with them though, and seeing where the bottleneck is. Because again, it's either going to be they don't have the right proven strategy for this thing that they're doing. They don't have the right process for this thing that they're doing. They don't have the right skill sets that they haven't yet to acquire for this thing. So we start chunking these things down to identify where those bottlenecks are. Because again, this person did not need to add an additional lead strategy. And here's the issue that so many have with this is how you do one thing is usually how you do everything. So you got, you're putting mediocre effort. And when I say mediocre effort, like this person wasn't putting mediocre effort into, I mean, they're working their ass off. So I'm not saying, when I say that word mediocre effort, I mean, they haven't mastered it yet. Right. They're working hard at this thing, but they're working hard at this thing in a poor manner. Right. It's like when I used to see this in the gym all the time. I'd see people come in and work their ass off in the gym all the time when I used to, work in that was the industry I was a part of before I got into real estate. But they didn't realize and know that, hey, you can't outwork your diet. A lot of people just think, oh, I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to start working out. And I see people come and start working out, 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, just crazy stuff, right? And then still not getting results. And they're getting frustrated, and they're getting, and I'm like, okay, well, I mean, let's start breaking this down, right? Like you got to make sure that you're doing the right thing in the right way. Another way of putting this, a saying I always love to use is, I don't care how hard you're sprinting. If you're sprinting east to chase the sunset, you're never going to see it. Yeah, you got to be running hard. I'm not saying that you don't have to take, the right amount of actions. But what's more important is taking the right amount of the right actions, being consistent with the right actions. So many people are putting in a lot of energy and effort and working a lot of hours, but they're just doing it in the wrong way. They're running in the wrong direction. And this is where then burnout happens, right? Because burnout, if you look at study burnout is work related. When you look at the actual medical definition of burnout and why burnout exists, again, this is from a medical definition. If you're talking to like, medical mental health professionals and that specialize in this stuff, is okay, when we're putting in all the effort, but the reward isn't matching the effort putting into this thing, that's when we get burnout. So then from there, we start chunking that down and identifying, making sure that we got that right strategy, because then I guess where I was going, I lost my train of thought there for a second, is okay, well, we haven't learned how to do something effectively at the highest level to squeeze every element of juice out of that thing. So then we go add a secondary thing. Then we go add a third thing. Then we go add a fourth thing. And now we end up doing all of them half-assed. Even though we're putting a lot of energy and effort into them, we're not maximizing those things. And you hear me talk about this a lot in this podcast, but this is why I talk about less being more. And I'm not saying do less. I'm saying do less overall activities. So then that way you can master them and then do them at a higher level, do them better, master the process, the strategy, the skill set, build the right systems around those things so you can maximize and just become a badass at conversions at those things. So less is more. So I can do more of those lesser number of things and do those things at a much, much higher level. All right. So before you go add a source, before you go add something new, first identify, okay, what's already working and how can I scale up? What am I already doing and what's already working that I could go out there and scale this up? I'm having a conversation on this past Friday. Same thing. This gentleman comes to me. His business is doing really well. I think he was, did something like 50 closings, and he's newer in the business, but did like 50 closings the last 12 months and wanting to, scale up from there. And was looking at adding, same thing, looking at adding these new sources. But then first thing that I said to him, I'm like, well, Kel, I'm not saying to not add these sources, but before we get into that, let me first ask you, why don't we just scale up what's already kicking ass for you? Like, why don't we just figure out how to do more of that thing, do that thing better, do that thing more effectively, more efficiently, have you, and let's maybe have a discussion around this, have you squeeze every element of juice out of that damn thing that's already freaking murdering it for you. And that thing that he was already doing was a blue ocean niche. It was awesome, low competition. I'm like, let's just see if we can, get more juice out of that thing. And then look, sometimes you get to a point where it's like, now this wasn't this gentleman's thing, but let's just say, for example, I'm going after FSBOs. And I'm not telling you got to go after FSBO. I'm just using this example because this is a good example for this. Okay, maybe I'm a badass. Like I've maximized like my strategy, my process, my skill set, my conversions are freaking off the charts with this. Well, we have a limitation sometimes. Like maybe you're only getting 5 new FSBOs a month in your market, and there's just not enough of them for you to go out there and scale your business in the way that you want to scale it. But you've maximized conversions, then boom, yeah. In that situation, then 100% it makes sense to add on an additional new source. But I wouldn't add on 2 new sources at once. I'd add on 1, right? Then from there, repeat this process. And I'm going to walk you through the process. So the first thing when you're going to go after, adding a new lead gen strategy is to identify the best proven strategy for that thing. Yeah, right. So like we give an example with open houses, or if I'm doing Facebook ads or whatever, strategy is just what is your overall effective plan. All right. So have I identified the best way to execute on this thing? Because you hear this all the time in our industry of like, people are like, oh man, I tried that thing. It didn't work for me. I tried this thing. It didn't work for me. I tried this thing. It didn't work for me. Everything works. Nothing doesn't. It's not the thing. It's you. And again, it's a hard pill to swallow, but that's really important for us to know, because now we can, that's it. I mean, the blessing of that is we know that this is in our control. It's not your market. It's not, people use all these damn excuses, right. And it just is what it is. But, if we want to hide behind that, fine, but you're going to have a very difficult time in this career, right. At least long term. Okay, so then from there, I want to make sure that I've got the right proven plan for the thing that I'm executing on. So I'm going to do my due diligence. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to go out there and identify, okay, who are, people in our industry that are crushing it with that thing, that have, gotten results, that went out there, maybe spent a decade or 2 decades mastering this thing, proving this thing, dialing this stuff in, to have it down to a science, and let me figure out exactly what they are doing step by step. So now I've got the right strategy. Again, strategy is our overall proven plan for that thing. Then from there, okay, now when we're talking about, because why does lead gen exist? So we can go out there and convert those leads into customers, right? So then when it comes to lead gen, so when I'm putting together a lead generation strategy, I don't look at just the lead gen component. I also look at my lead follow-up protocol, right? So, hey, I got the activity to generate the lead. But then from there, okay, what then is the best proven follow-up protocol, from a process standpoint? So, how long, in which ways am I following up? How frequent am I doing my phone calls? What does my messaging need to be? All of that stuff, right? To maximize conversions. So I want to make sure that I've got that in place. I've got that dialed in. And then I know what conversion should be. So then I can know if I'm sucking at this thing, if I'm doing average, if I'm below average, if I'm good, if I'm great, if I'm exceptional. Like I know then, what my areas of improvement. So I can deal in realities with this. Next thing then is to identify, okay, what skill sets do you need to master and to have in place to go out there and have success with this thing? So we're breaking this down. And again, if we chunk that down again, we're identifying the right proven strategy for this overall thing that we are doing. So we have the right effective plan to have success with this, right? Then from there, we're identifying the best follow-up protocol, best follow-up process, best follow-up protocol to go out there and maximize conversions within that activity. Then from there, we are identifying, okay, like what is the best overall, or like what is the skill sets that I need to acquire to have success with this thing. Then from there, okay, I'm going to make sure I got my tracking system in place so I can track and measure this whole thing. Then I'm going to make sure I got any supporting systems that I need to allow me to execute on my processes in the same way each and every single time, but do those in the most effective and efficient, manner. And putting those things together, that is what creates a successful lead gen strategy, right? And most people just don't put the time, energy into making sure they've got the right overall lead gen strategy. And then they just, again, jump shit. They just then chasing these shiny pennies. Yeah, right. They're looking for the next best thing. Oh, what's the next best thing? What's the next best thing? What's the secret? What's the next best? Like, there's none. Like the success is usually found in the work that you're trying to avoid. Yeah, right. And stop avoiding the work. Do the work. Do it consistently, the right work consistently, and then the success will follow. Right. So anyway, I hope that this is helpful. Make sure that you're not making that mistake that I see so many making. About 90% of our industry and 90% of the conversations, that I have with people when I jump on these free coaching calls or when I'm speaking at events or where that come up to me asking for help, asking for advice. I mean, we start diving into the weeds, because the vast majority of people out there are like, oh, my biggest obstacle is, I need a better lead source. I need, whatever. And, it's the most common thing that I see. And we start going through start peeling back the onion layers. This is the core issue of what I talked to you about today that they're really, really struggling with. And if you have a difficult time identifying this in your own business, again, for a limited amount of time, I got these free coaching calls, Zoom coaching calls with me personally. Now with this, it's a free coaching call, not free coaching calls, right? So I'm saying calls because I'm doing lots of calls with, many of you, with these. I've had some people that have been like, oh, well, this just means I can book a call with you once a week. And no, it's like, I've given you one. Yeah. Right. Cause I want to be able to help as many people as I can, but on that one, that's all we need. Like, you give me the one call with you, I will make sure you know exactly what to do to get from where you're at to where you want to go in the quickest, most effective, efficient manner. I promise you that. So if this is something you want to take advantage of, go to www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. Or again, go to the show notes, go to the description. There'll be a top link there that you can click on to go out there and schedule us. All right, guys, keep crushing, keep kicking ass. I will see you next time. Peace.